Well, David, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we did a little talking ahead of time about some of where you grow up, and I think it's good for my audience just to know a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how you got to where you are, and I'd love to get some of the highlights from you if you could share a couple of those.
Oh, sure. Thank you for the question, and be my pleasure. So, once again, my name is David Wallace. I'm the CTO here at Greenphire. We are a clinical payments solution provider just outside of Philadelphia, and we supply our customers globally. I've been here a little over 8 years. When I started, we were about 15 employees, and we're well over 200 now. So it's been quite an enjoyable opportunity that I've had by joining Greenphire, and all the different opportunities to work with a lot of great people and customers along the way. But for me personally, I grew up Dublin, Ireland, in a little town called Naas, and I moved to the States with my family in my early teens. Myself, my parents, and my 3 brothers and sisters, and we decided to come here for, realistically, better opportunities. As my father was saying then, and would still say now if he could, he's like, we love the opportunities for all of you. You would all leave Ireland because there was very limited opportunities at the time. And so he had an opportunity to come to the States and wanted to give us the best opportunity. I think of the World War I and World War II generation of always wanting to provide more for your own children, right? For the next generation, to allow them to continue to grow. And my parents worked very, very hard to offer that opportunity for me. And with that, I take a big responsibility to taking that opportunity and trying to be the best person I can with my plenty of flaws that I have, but also to work hard, right? I realize one of the things that I think is very important as a leader, or even anything, is to realize you are not the smartest person in the room. So no matter what your role, if you believe you're the smartest person in the room, I think the saying goes, you need to find other people to be around. But ultimately knowing that you're not, and utilizing those people around you to become better, to be more execute more effectively, making the best decisions you can, and allow your business to be as successful as possible. So working hard is something that I take very, very seriously, and I practice that on a daily basis. That I'm going to give it my all. That I'm here every single day, and to try to make myself, my team, and the organization as successful as possible.
That's interesting. I think I don't know if there's any studies on this, but it's I think when you come from outside the U.S. or you're close to as you get closer and closer to first generation, I think that there's the word hard work is overused, and I think the first generation typically leans into that at a different caliber, a different gear ratio than second, third, fourth, and fifth generation folks when they use the word hard work. And so I don't know if there's a way to measure that, but that is certainly my observation growing up in Boston around an immigrant and hearing the stories. I'm not first generation, but hearing the stories of being second generation of first, I can't compare.
Yeah. So, and I also, I think about my own children, right? And how can I instill a sense of, hard work and an appreciation for what they have. But I also, as a youth, I was either cutting grass. I was, through college, I drove a truck. I worked at a furniture store, and I refinished and helped build furniture, or drove the truck for that. And I saw so many small business owners and how hard they worked to keep their small business up and running. And it wasn't I'd never worked on a farm or lived on a farm. I can only, appreciate, to a certain degree, understand the amount of hard work they have. But these small business owners, they work really, really hard. And there's a 7-day a week job. And being a part of that during my late teens and through college, as I worked at different places, really gave me, I think, another appreciation of what hard work takes. If you want to accomplish something,
Yeah.
it's not going to come right at you. It's awesome that you get an opportunity, but man, once the opportunity is there, it's your responsibility to go take it and do a good job and then learn as you go along. Because you don't, just because you've gotten the job doesn't mean you know everything. That's for sure. Learning from the people around you, learning from your mistakes, and then just continue to build upon them.
I saw in your LinkedIn, you were a tennis instructor as well. Is that something that you still to this day play?
I do. I love to play tennis. I don't play near as much as I used to, as my children are a little younger these days. But I played a lot, and I had an opportunity to, up in Western Massachusetts, teach some of these summer camps for children that are 10 to 18. And I used to go up there and coach tennis and basketball. So I played tennis and basketball all day. I mean, being outside in the, in the mountains of Western Massachusetts, it was a fun experience for me. Just to, before I entered the official working world, I did a few years of that.
Now, about Greenphire. So you've been just kind of shifting dramatic years from growing up to kind of the grown-up version of yourself right now. I find it really, really cool how you've been there from 15 employees to where the company is right now. That's literally like a startup journey of epic proportions. And I'm just curious, maybe you can just give us listeners a little overview of what your company does from a mechanics perspective, and then I can ask you some more questions from there.
Sure. So we are a SaaS-based software company that works in the clinical trial space. And we have two primary products. One is called ClinCard and Connects, which is all about the patient convenience. And that could be reimbursement on a reimbursable debit card that they're issued your first time you come to a clinical trial. Because if you're participating in a clinical trial, either you've been reimbursed or there's stipends for your time and energy to participate in a clinical trial. And especially you'll see that in phase 1, phase 2, and a bit in phase 3. And so we have an application that's tied to a card the first time you come in there that's assigned to you, and it's a reimbursable card. So every time you come back, another bit of money is loaded onto that for your reimbursements to make sure there's no inconvenience. Because within a clinical trial, dropouts of patients is very, very expensive, right? So the needs to keep patient retention is a critical aspect of a clinical trial. And our products help with that. So they help with the reimbursement. They also help a lot with travel. When I look under the patient convenience umbrella, it could be you need a car ride from your house to the doctor's office. It could be that it's a trial where it's specialized and you need to get on a plane and there's going to be a hotel involved. It could be that you need companion services. It could be you're a minor and you need your parents to come with you, right? So there's a lot of different things that are blockers for patients within a clinical trial. And our goal with that, one of our products, is to remove those barriers of the ability for patients to participate in a clinical trial around finance. We never want subjects to have to be out of pocket or unable to afford to be participating in clinical trials.
Okay, and that's product number 1, right? That's your main. Okay,
that's correct. And our second product is called eClinical GPS, and that is focusing on the site and doctor payments. So the doctors and sites obviously see all these patients, and they need to be payments need to be executed to them for all the work that they've done, whether it's for a visit, a procedure, an MRI, a blood draw, whatever they might be. And as part of a clinical trial, there's a negotiation period between the sponsor and the site or the hospital to say is how much should I get paid for each one of these. So one is that we have as part of eClinical GPS, we have a product called Invisix, which helps with the budgeting process. It helps you assign procedures to a visit, and then it allows you to understand what the fair market value of that is. And then it helps you determine what that price is going to be. And then from there, that either comes from our product or a third, if you're doing the budget outside of that, gets loaded into eClinical GPS as the contract. And the contract has all the contracted rates in that system. And from there, once all loaded into our system, which we provide services for, there are either data feeds that come into eClinical GPS, or you're doing it through our user interface that triggers that these events have happened. And with that, it's a very global platform. So we're able to execute these payments in the payment terms that are decided on in the contract, and able to pay these payments with a lot of different invoicing regulations that are throughout the world.
Sure.
You know, what VAT requirements and invoice requirements are needed in France and Romania may be a lot different from the United States. So our product is able to handle all those different countries' rules and regulations, and we're able to facilitate the movement of that money from the sponsor to those doctors. Because one of the biggest struggles that a site may have in participating in a clinical trial is it takes them 3 to 6 months to get paid for anything, right? So we can streamline that process and to really help facilitate. In addition, there's a lot of transparency that our applications perform. So there's a lot of reporting. We have a lot of data, for not only from a reporting perspective, but also from an aggregate perspective, that allows our customers to utilize that and see that, so they can understand how long it takes them to pay, or where exactly every dollar goes into payments around to the sites and the doctors participating in clinical trials.
So did you always did you follow a particular methodology for building this application through the years, or have you shifted over time as you've been? Because I know you're using like an SDLC process now, correct?
Yeah.
Did you start out that way? We
did, but our SDLC has grown significantly over the years.
Okay.
The SDLC that I had when I first joined this organization 8 years ago is significantly different from what we have now. And there's a number of reasons for that, right? Our products have such a great user base and such an opportunity for continued enhancements and growth that, we really need to make sure we know what the most critical items are, and make sure we go through that process to determine what those different features or capabilities and expansion opportunities are, to make sure they're the right ones. But also, it's not, when I joined here, we maybe had two small development teams, and I have significantly greater than that now, right? And so there's a lot of different moving pieces, and so the oversight to your SDLC must be greater, because you don't have the ability when in a company you have 6 people on your team, you're able to see what's happening on a daily basis. But when it's as large as it is now, you don't have your fingers on everything at all times. So the importance of a more defined SDLC, with still giving the developers and the team members the freedom to do what they need to do, but clearly articulated what the gates are, what the roles and responsibilities are, and how we can be as transparent as possible. So about 2 years ago, based off of some frustrations and a lot of questions that was happening from the organization, I made a specific stake in the ground to my team that I said, we will be the most transparent department in this organization. People are going to know exactly what we're doing, exactly when we fail, and exactly when we succeed. Okay? Because when you tell people when you fail, fail is a hard word, but hey, we missed it by a sprint. It's going to take a little longer. We found a couple defects, whatever it is. They're going to trust what you're saying. And so when you say it's done and it's successful, they also believe you there. So you have to build credibility. Building credibility to the business that you are able to build and deliver software on a consistent basis is really what major part of my job is to build that confidence. And the way I build that confidence is by actually enabling it to happen. But that's an output of success.
So how were you able to do that and build that? Because there's a lot of, we just had the CIO meeting last week, and we were talking amongst the group, and people were talking about lean, and they're talking about agile development. They were talking about design thinking, and everybody's had success. Another one was talking about there's different models, and so different folks that had different success at different ones. What has been the contributor to your success? Do you think is there a common denominator that you think has been able to do that consistently over 8 years?
What I think I would say is the ability to change, right?
Okay.
And understand that the way you're doing it then may not be working now, or you need to grow up a little bit more and take your SDLC or software development lifecycle to the next level. And you know, I would prefer that I was a little bit ahead of the changes that I've had to make over the years, and be a little less reactive and a little bit more proactive. And I think that's you know, things that I've learned over the years, that I would have more of a warning signs, or something I'm working on now is our SLIs and SLOs, which is service level indicators and service level objectives. So if our indicators are this, when it hits this objective, it needs to trigger something. So if you have more than X amount of defects, well, I'm going to stop innovation and go fix defects. With those types of things, it's putting a little bit more structure around your SDLC without confining what the engineers, designs, architects, product managers, and BAs need to do. But if you do that, that actually helps them become more successful. So I think what I think has been part of the success is that listening to your team, knowing what they're saying, right? Incorporating that into what your philosophies are, right? And then executing on adjustments that make everybody more successful. Now, change is uncomfortable for everybody, right? So you make a decision on change, you're going to have, maybe you have 20%, maybe you have 80% that are going to like it, but you're always going to have variance. But how do you track it? How do you report on it? How do you see if it's working or not? One of the things that I always tell my team is that I'm not always great of like, hey, we made a decision and now we're going that way. I got to just make sure we go back over the last 3 or 6 months and make sure we measure that to see if it was successful or not. Because sometimes it's just it's a gut feel. Yeah, that was successful. We're working better. But how much better? Because you want to celebrate your victories as much as you want to look at the past and see what you can do better.
Yeah, I mean that's actually I'm part of an entrepreneurs group, and one of the biggest problems with the entrepreneurs is they're constantly looking at the vision, and the vision is always shifting by design. You're never going to reach the horizon because the horizon shifts every time you move forward. But if you actually look at where you started, you can measure from where you started to where you are.
That's right.
Which is what you're just saying.
It's a tough thing to do, and it's as you know, I'm always looking at the next thing that I want to do. I don't always pause long enough and actually celebrate the victories and acknowledge the team of what they've accomplished. So one of the things that I'm trying to do differently, and the COVID-19 initiated this, but I tell you what, if I look back, I should be doing this for years. So what I've done is, especially as the team has gotten bigger, I've initiated a couple different things. One is I do a weekly blog, and it takes me 15 minutes. I do it every Thursday night before I leave.
Weekly blog, a blog?
It's a blog where I post internally to my team. Okay, I actually use Slack. We use Slack here at Greenphire within the IT and engineering department. So I just post a little blog, and it's 3 simple topics: personal, Greenphire, and team wins.
Okay.
Every week, I talk a little bit about what I got going on. This past weekend, I built a fence, a vegetable garden, and a fence. And I told them that the blisters to show it, and I'd send up a picture of it. Or my mother turned 80, and we were unable to have a party for her, but what we did for said. So, one of the goals is to connect with them and them to feel connected to me. It's nothing fake. It's just pure, like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. So I try to talk a little bit about that. I talk about Greenphire as a whole. What are the exciting things or things that happened this week that we had this big meeting with a client. We delivered a feature. We have, interest in X, Y, and Z, or we've completed the automated testing for a specific thing. And then I'll talk about wins, and that's a little bit more specific to my team. What did the team do this week? We had our showcase meeting this week, and it was well received and got great feedback from our operations team. Or, we've been working on this project for 3 months or 6 months, and it completed this week, and it's being rolled out to production next week. So so it's a constant feeling of, hey, we're accomplishing things. We have lots of things we can get better at. We have so many opportunities of things we can do, but I want to try to take the time to acknowledge, hey, this week we had a win.
Well, it's actually a muscle. I mean, you're building a muscle of noticing. Well, I mean, what you notice expands, and so if you're constantly noticing the W's, you're going to expand the W's, and so that's a muscle, though. I mean, because most people want to default to the failure.
Well, and it's a very easy thing to do, and that has been a change for me, is to focus on that and to acknowledge that. That's
hard to do. That's great. That's hard to do.
It is, but it does allow me to see more of the wins. To your point, right? I wasn't necessarily reaching out for them, so now I'm reaching out and looking and understanding that. And then, so doing that, I now have virtual either breakfast or lunch with different people of my team. I do small groups of 5 or 6, so that means you every 7 weeks you get to have one with me. If you're overseas, it's a breakfast. If you're local, you do a lunch. And then I do once a month, I just put an hour and a half in my calendar and I join a Zoom call, and anybody wants to come, they can join. So I just call it office hours. We end up talking a lot about, well, these days we talk about what you're trying to do, or how can you plan a vacation, or my idea is to rent an RV and go around. I think that sounds like a great idea. I've not convinced my family that that's a good vacation as of yet, but so we end up talking about those types of things. Or they might ask, when do you think the office might open up again, and what would it look like? And so it can go. There's a lot of different topics that can be covered, but ultimately my goal is to create a connection. And what I've actually found is even the people that were working here for the last year, and I just didn't get a really chance to make a connection with, I'm able to do it now. So like I said, any place I work, for now how long we're in a remote sense, I would think I will always do this to a certain extent.
Do you feel like you've doubled down on it over the past 3 months? I know myself, I have, but we were maybe once we were quarterly, the quarterly updates. Now it's weekly. And I'm like, why don't we do it? And I'm sitting there going, why wasn't I doing weekly before? I said, it's much better to do weekly than quarterly.
Yes, I do feel like that. Because you're just not seeing each other. And I felt, at least for the first month, that I was talking to 6 people and it was only the same 6 every time. I needed a wider base of people to talk to. And I'm sure they were getting tired of talking to me too. So I think I've doubled down, and I think it just allows so much more of a connection.
Now, how do you stay in touch with customers? No, I mean, let me ask a clarifying question. Are you also the CIO and CTO combined, or do you have a different CIO?
We don't have a CIO role here, or defined, or I should say quantified as a specific role. So I consider myself encompassing both of those roles.
So you're playing offense and defense from the need to take care of what's rolled out to your customers, but also defense, HIPAA, FDA, all the requirements. So I'm assuming you kind of got both.
Yes.
Other than maybe audit, right?
Yeah. So we have a quality department here that leads the charge for audit, but we are. Let me just say a big portion of that, right? So obviously, so I have a team that works for me that is obviously in charge of infrastructure and security and all the things that go along with that, that are heavily involved in all audits and our certifications. So ISO 27001, PCI, all those things. While quality obviously is a big help for us to help guide us through that process. From a technical perspective, we're in charge. of all those different things.
So how do you pay attention to customers then? So how do you keep it like the heartbeat of what needs to change, prioritizing what happens next related to your software to deliver those wins for end users? Is there a method that you use for kind of ingesting that feedback?
So the way Greenphire handles it, we have a chief product officer who's ultimately in charge of the prioritization of the primary features and functionality that our products will bring in, as well as new products, right? So we obviously work very closely together of what they are. And, there's a lot of different funnels that lead into that. It's our customers, it's our internal operational staff, it's internal IT needs, right? It's
Sure.
There's a lot of different inputs. And so their job is challenging to balance, what's more important, what do we need to do next? And one of the, so that's a challenge that they have, and we all work very, very closely together, and to a point where now we're having monthly, roadmap planning meetings to make sure what's changed either in the landscape with our customers, with our product, that we need to be thinking 3, 6, 9 months out. So we're always thinking what's next and not just what we're doing right now. But one of the interesting facts is that, there's always, you're never short of opinions, right? So you can have people that are very heavy in innovation and new products. Some people are like, we need to add more capabilities to an existing feature. There may be other things that people think that we need to be doing. So one of the things that I decided at the beginning of this year is, what's the right balance of what I would say is like innovation versus product health? And product health, I put under, removing of a manual process, defects, it is an upgrade of some of your plugins or your stack, all those types of things. So I put a definition of it. And I said, I'm not going to create what I think it should be. I'm just going to measure it for a year. So we're halfway through the year and we've been measuring it. And I published that as part of my key KPIs on a monthly basis is, where are we as an organization? How much time are we spending on innovation? How much time are we spending on product health? And do we ever spend things that are only for our client, right? Client specific. Our goal would be 0%, that everything we build is always available to all our clients. But we understand in some of the reporting we have, we've had to do some client-specific reporting. But ultimately, our goal is to measure that. So we'll see where that comes out. We'll see the progress that we've made and understand what maybe our goal will be for 2021. But you need to measure it first and see where we are.
Is there one key indicator you look for from your team to know that I love that product health versus innovation, because there's always such a push for more, that if you don't have the product health, it seems like you'd end up with a lot of needless complexity, because not all innovation is received well enough to continue forward, right? I mean, some of the innovation might be innovative to you and your team or the product department, but might not be seen as ultimately well received by the customer. And so you end up with this, like, how do you avoid just ending up with a rat's nest of product, but only like the 20% that's really useful for the customer? Like, what's the governance for that?
Well, I don't necessarily feel like we have that particular struggle. I think what where there's always, within technology, there's always that technical debt. So, removing of technical debt that customers probably would never even see that you have or you've removed. So those things that client-facing innovation, maybe I should put it that way, is obviously very, very important. We're an innovative company. You're paying for not only our product today, but how our product will continue to grow and improve. So that absolutely is a critical component to what we do. And I think, as I've stated a couple of times, if I did it all over again, I would have started measuring that about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, to make sure that I know what the right balance should be and how we do stay and incorporating different things throughout the period of time. Because also, when you don't measure, everybody's got their own opinion. Wow, we spend all our time doing innovation. No, we do all our time fixing defects. Well, we don't have any data to back that up. So everybody gets to make their own decision, and so, or opinion, right? So what I like to do, without being a complete control freak, is I'm going to start with the data, and I'm going to tell you what the facts are. Like, you can debate a little bit. Maybe I'm off by 5% because I determined something was product health, and maybe you believe it was innovation, or vice versa. But really what you're doing is you're telling a story about what we've done, and we can say, I really wish I didn't have to do that, but we did it and we did that well. So that's good, right? It'd be worse if I really didn't want to do it because it was not adding a lot of value to our client and we did it poorly. That would be terrible. So understanding what you're doing, what the value it adds, whether it's to scale the business, whether it's to scale the product, whether it's to be able to move to more of a microservice technology, or it's to remove a blocker or manual processes for our customers today. It's a big range. And there's never a dull moment of another thing that we need to do to continue to add to our product. There's just a ton of opportunities, which is an exciting thing.
Well, as we wrap up, David, I wanted to just come back to, I call it superpowers. And they're what I would consider every one of the CTOs, CIOs that I work with and I interview wouldn't be in the position they're at unless they're doing something extraordinarily well. So what is there one thing that you would consider is most important for you and has been a big positive indicator of why you've been successful in your career so far?
I would struggle to say one, and I know you're. Maybe I'll pick one as I say a few things that I think are really, really important, and the things that I've learned along the way. But one I would say is don't stop. Never stop learning. Right? If you think you know it all, you're going to fail. Right? I'm sure there's some people. In the beginning, you said don't assume you're the smartest person in the room, and that's a humble yet very strategic perspective. And I don't want to put words in your mouth because I'm jumping in your words right now, but I thought that was really cool. Yeah, no, I don't. One is generally true, and two is acknowledging that and realizing that so you can pick the best piece. You're surrounded with 8 or 10 people. Understanding where their expertise are, or they're going to add value in different places, is to be able to listen to that, right? Is such an important thing. But when you think you got it down, that means you're not learning or growing or listening to other people, and you're not able to move that thing forward. But, and I said this early on too, is being hard work. I made a decision a long time ago. No one's going to outwork me, right? They may be, I was a runner, and I wouldn't say I was a great runner. I was okay. But I freaking tried hard. I ran hard. I practiced hard. No one's going to outwork with me. No one's going to beat me in the last 20 yards. But I wasn't going to be the fastest guy over the 5-mile race. But you know what? I made a decision a long time ago that I'm going to work hard and I'm going to work my best. And if that doesn't work out, that's okay. But I absolutely tried my best. And I say that to my kids a little bit. Did you try your best and work hard? Yes. I don't care, right? Obviously, I want them to win and I want them to succeed. But being a small child, that's really important. But what I would say is, as one of the next levels for me, being running a larger department now, is how do I set those 3 to 5 things that we must complete this year or this next 6 months, right? How do I do that and constantly keep other things out, right? Yes. Because everybody wants it. And then keeping my team in, right? Change distractions and slows us down. And we have to do that sometimes. And I just recently, last week, had to make a change to take us to focus on something to eliminate the problem. I would prefer than never have to do that and be planning 3 and 6 months ahead. But ultimately, as we continue to grow, what I feel my biggest power needs to be in this stage of this organization right now is making sure we have a clear vision and I keep us in the bumpers. My job is to keep us in and keep other distractions out.
I love that. That's the Pareto principle. It's 80-20. 20% of our software code gets 80% of our value, 20% of our investment gets 80% of our return. That's right. And they've mathematically proven it. And it's hard for humans to do that. It's hard for you. 20% of our mileage, gets us, 80% of our results running, because we have sloppy miles. Some of the miles are just flat out sloppy.
It really is.
No, that's great. I love that. I think that's important because you've been massively successful with your organization and you're really interesting self-awareness about, okay, if I'm going to get 10x bigger, if the company's going to get 10x bigger, I can't keep doing things the same way. Hard work gets me to a point, but I've got to keep being smart about that and keep winnowing the 80/20. And it's what are the five? I love that. I love that message.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think I could have done better or need to continue to do better is plan for that. What am I looking like in 18 months from now? What do I need to be doing differently then? And start planning for that now and not waiting till the time comes. And that's a really important thing. Is as your CTO or any management role grows, as your team grows, you have to make the progression from being tactical, strategic, and that's even just becoming a manager for the very first time. It's one of the hardest changes any manager, any individual can make in their career is their first management job, as is a change of thinking. And when I look at it as a growing organization, I make those changes every 18 months to 2 years. I need to be planning ahead of what my team needs to be able to do and how I need to be strategically different.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to throw yourself forward 2 years and look back at yourself and say, what needs to happen now, so that future self gets realized with the team, future business.
That's right.
That's fascinating. Well, David, this has been great. Is there anything that I've asked you or said that you're like, you wish you could have jumped in and said, or do you think we've covered pretty much everything?
No, I think you did a fantastic job. I really appreciate your questions and the different types of questions you asked me today. A little bit different, and I enjoyed it quite a bit to talk about not only my personal youth and growth and where I've come from and what we're doing here at Greenphire, which I feel is very, very exciting and great opportunities and what we need to do to continue to grow. But I guess the last thing I would just say is growth and in your individual, the organization, whatever it is, it takes a lot of hard work and just to be aware or be reflective without going backwards and regrets, but be reflective so you can grow more. Try to have a little fun with it too. If you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day with this group, you got to have a little bit of fun. So, keep that in mind.
And you've got some great nuggets of wisdom here. This is going to be great for people to listen to, old and new, because just even the way the weekly updates on you do on that Wednesday night or Thursday, focusing on the wins. Gosh, there's nothing more powerful because IT sometimes can take you down, and you got to be really persistent from a mentality. And I think that's great the way you're spreading that within your team. So really appreciate your time today, David, and look forward to producing this and getting it out into the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It's great. And I look forward to seeing it and hopefully get to talk to you soon.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.